we're not having a serious conversation about how to move this country forward at a time when countries all over the world aren't waiting for us to decide whether we're going to compete in the 21st century. And what we've seen is, over the last 15 years or so, as our demographics have changed, and that's, by the way, something that I understand, as Bob said, having been superintendent of the Denver Public Schools, a district that's 57% Latino. You know, I used to dream that the Chamber of Commerce would actually come stand in a middle school in Denver and watch who's walking by during the passing period to understand what the demographics of our own community look like and how they're changing. And this economy, as I mentioned, over the last 15 years, is the first time in this country's history when median family income declined. And that decline has accelerated in this recession. And the destruction of household wealth in the Latino community in particular has been extraordinary as a result of this recession, because there was so much value in the community in housing as an asset. At the same time that that's happened, at the same time that we've seen that decline in middle-class family income, we've seen a huge rise in productivity in the largest companies because they're figuring out how to do what they do with fewer people. Our gross domestic product is almost back to where it was before this recession started. But that's news to 14 to 25 million people who are either unemployed or underemployed, who can't find work. And the way we're going to put people back to work in this country is by creating a tax code and a regulatory code that speaks to the businesses that are going to be created tomorrow and next week and the week after that. It's not going to be about the legacy businesses in the 21st century when it comes to jobs. And that's why your advocacy and your work is so important on behalf of the community, because issues like access to capital, issues like the ability of community banks to survive and thrive in this world, access to the contracts that the federal government and other governmental entities provide, is the way small business gets started in this country and becomes, over time, the Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies that drive our economy. The one other thing that I just wanted to address while I have everybody here is education. You know, if you are a child born into poverty in this country, whether you're urban or you're rural, it doesn't matter. Your odds of graduating with a college degree are 9 in 100. So from the day that you're born, 91 of that 100 people, if we don't change things, are going to be constrained to existing in the margins of the democracy and the margins of this economy. And I don't need to tell you that a lot of the children that I'm talking about are Latino. When I was superintendent, sometimes people would say to me, often they would say to me, Michael, don't you know not everybody's going to go to college? And I would say, well, to the extent that that's actually their choice, I guess that's okay with me. But we shouldn't fail our kids and then say that they're making an affirmative choice not to go to college and feel like that somehow is okay. And in my community, it's our Latino students that are bearing the brunt of a system that was designed in the 19th century, not for the 21st century. We have to change those outcomes. And even if you don't believe we have to change it for the children themselves, which ought to be reason enough, we need to change it if we're going to compete in this economy. We're going to close the gap between rich and poor in this country. The last time we were creating jobs in this country, we created 5 million jobs for people with a college degree. We created 3.5 million jobs for people with something more advanced than a high school diploma. No jobs for high school graduates, and we lost jobs for high school dropouts. And we need to do better. 9 out of 100 is completely unacceptable. And I know everybody here agrees with that. We need to lean into this harder in Washington and in our communities if we're going to change the outcomes for our economy. Because Bob's right, you know, and this is right. Somos el presente y el futuro. It's true. And if you look out over time and extrapolate the demographic trends that are going to happen in this country and don't change the outcomes in education in this country, we're not going to recognize ourselves as a democracy.